Hi, everybody. Welcome to your weekly broadcast. My name is Honish. I'm joined by David Bartels. Normally at this time, we have a very measured out topic to cover, and we will get back to it next week. I have actually in front of me, I want to work on doing the SMART plan, or maybe what more people would know, David, is OKRs, right? We'll get to that next week. This week, I guess we should cover what's really on everybody's mind at the moment, and that's the election. So let's talk about it for a split second. As we sit here at 9:06 in the morning, the election itself is still somewhat up in the air. It will probably wind up in the hands of the Supreme Court, it looks like, because it is going to be so tight. So let's talk about it. Do you see, let's start with the real simple question. Is there going to be any impact on real estate, David?
Oh, I don't know what the stock market's doing, but I went out to get my cup of coffee and saw my wife, who was busy working on, the stock market. That's what she does as her vocation. And she said, the market's up big. I said, so what's that mean? Because normally the stock market likes clarity, right? They're less concerned about who wins and more concerned about just knowing who the winner is. And in this case, it's up. And she says, it looks like Biden's going to win. That was her opinion, not mine. I have no new data to suggest that. She said, it looks like Biden's going to win, but the Senate is going to be controlled by the Republicans still. So they're not worried about Biden tax hikes and that kind of thing. And they also feel like they're going to be able to get a stimulus package done, which is going to be good for the economy. And so the stock market is rejoicing and apparently running up pretty good, today. So I think that's a indication that everything's going to be okay. And I don't think there's going to be really any change in the real estate business over the same kind of things that we've been seeing. I don't think they can really extend forbearance, for any longer than they have. I don't think the only thing they can really do is try to get home sellers some money, unless they're going to pay rents or mortgages on behalf of people who are impacted by Corona, which I don't really see them doing. I think it's going to be business as usual. And after a few days, people are going to have a real sense of relief and are going to get back to their normal routine. And I think next year is going to be a banner year for real estate sales. I mean, maybe the best we've ever seen in history. So, we'll see. I can't hear you.
Well, I was being clever and muting my microphone for vehicles passing by. Okay, so let's talk about how that works. Well, I'm in San Diego, which means there's a plane landing every 4.5 minutes down here. So let's talk about this objectively. How do people get back on track? How does the economy sustain itself? I mean, we're talking about millions of people displaced work-wise because of coronavirus. That isn't going to go away. I mean, we can speculate all we want, but normal isn't going to really happen until 2022 or late 2021. So we're talking about a bunch of people out of work. Is it just strictly an inventory to product for real estate to maintain itself?
Well, in California, for sure. California is going to have a housing shortage for a really, really, really long time. Now, if you go to markets like New York, which I'm going in a couple of weeks to see what's going on, it's like everything is changing. A lot of people left the city. They've gone back to the suburbs. They've gone back to the kids that are working on Wall Street and the other places in the financial center in New York. They're gone back home to their hometowns and living with their families all over the country and waiting for the go sign to go back into the city. I hear rents are plummeting. The cost of housing is notoriously high there. I think that you're seeing similar things in the San Francisco area as people retreat more to the suburbs and they figure out how they can work from home. And so from that perspective, we're seeing housing prices going up, but we're seeing rents going down. And that is part of what's going to drive the sale. So I don't see there much anybody to do, much anybody can do really to get it back on track, is take care of themselves. Be as productive as they can. Don't wait for the government to bail you out. Even if they come with some money, it's going to be temporary. And you want to make sure that you're doing the very best you can do in order to take care of your own business, so that you've got the means to be able to support yourself.
That brings up a very rational point, right? So what is market perception? What is the perception of homeowners? What is the perception based on Corona? I'm checking just to see if we actually have a sudden victory claim by someone. But
No,
Biden
it's
just
gonna.
took another state.
I don't. He did.
Yeah, he
Okay.
took another key state, but it's still up in the air. So
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
keeping real estate agents focused and on track, right? Following the trend. The trend would be, what are homeowners thinking, right? Outside of the metros. You and I are very fortunate. I'm in San Diego, you're up in the valley. Real estate is hot in both of those markets. I mean, look at my day over my shoulder. I don't want to be a jerk about it, but San Diego is nearly perfect year round. I mean, there's a slight breeze. There's a reason I'm sitting outside. It's like 72 right now. The car's in the driveway. I'm sitting on the porch having a great day out in front of my house. I'm really lucky, right? The rest of the country is under snow, or if you're down in the south, right? Florida and Louisiana are going through, or just went through, another, hurricane, which is mind-boggling to me that they keep happening. And even in Northern California, they're having fires. So I worry when we look at this from a trend perspective, right? So discussing this like marketing, if I was building a profile over a homeowner right now to either buy or sell, I think buying is not the issue from my perspective. That still seems to be the biggest number of people out there, without a doubt. But let's talk about sellers, right? We're always looking for the indicator that triggers them into making a sale. And based on the election and based on the coronavirus, I still think we're going to face a supply and demand issue. So what would be, from your point of view, sort of what a profile of somebody who's selling in this market at the moment?
Well, I think that you're going to see a couple of things. I mean, the reason I say that it's going to be a banner year, there's a lot of pent-up buyer demand, right? I mean, you can see that just in the bidding wars, the number of offers that we're seeing on properly priced properties. So that's the first thing. But the inventory is going to loosen up after the first of the year, and here's why. There are a lot of mom and pop landlords, own one property, own two properties that they have rented out, that have been getting stiffed on the rent, and they've had to go out of pocket in order to keep them, or they've had to rely on forbearance in order to keep it out of foreclosure. You're not allowed to evict. Those eviction moratoriums are coming to an end after the first of the year. In California, they can start evicting in January if the tenant has not been paying at least 25% of the rent, and if they've been paying 25% of the rent, then they can evict in February. And so you're going to see a lot of landlords just throw their hands up and say, you know what, I don't want this risk anymore. I don't want to deal with that. It was way too stressful for me, and they're going to just liquidate their property. And I think that you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see also a lot of sellers who didn't want to sell into the middle of the pandemic. They were uncertain as to what it was going to do. And when they thought they wanted to sell, they didn't want to sell into the fourth quarter of the year. And so we're anticipating them bringing their house on the market after the first of the year. And I think that not only you're going to see a big surge of listings after January, but it's going to continue to build into the spring and summer selling season, which could be the biggest spring and summer seller season that we've ever had. So I think that's really what you're going to see. People who otherwise weren't planning on, who this year or last year weren't even thinking about moving. And that's before you factor in all the people who now realize that they can work from anywhere and their employers are going to allow them to work from anywhere. And so they're no longer tethered to a particular market. And now they want to go be near kids and grandkids and friends and that kind of thing. Those people are also going to sell. So you've got those three groups that are kind of moving in unison, that are going to result in a lot of inventory. And too much inventory could cause prices to go down, unless demand also peaks because of the low interest rate and people's confidence now that the election is over. And of course, the Dodgers won the World Series, so that's going to make people happy too. Nope.
Oh, there we go. I'm being clever again.
Mm-hmm.
Did my rear unit guy just walk behind me?
Yeah.
Yes. Wave hi to my rear unit guy. Story of my life. Never have a granny flat and rent it out. Or is that good? I don't know. I digress.
Depends on your perspective.
Depends on your perspective. I didn't put a memo back there. So with all of that said, let's talk about building a profile out, right? So we've got people that are going to be facing eviction. We've got landlords that are going to have numerous deficiencies in regards to money. Does it make sense now to start to focus on, and we've talked about this previously, the millions of people who haven't made payments, or even the commercial properties that might be in distress? I mean, I don't know if there are many loans out there. I would assume most of those are owned outright, but it would seem logically from a trend position to start to focus on those types of properties as potential properties for sale.
Well, that's the category I left out, was the foreclosures. I mean, how could I forget? I kind of included them in the rentals, but there are going to be a lot of foreclosure starts for these people who haven't been paying, that have been in forbearance because they've had tenants in there that couldn't pay it. And then there'll be people who are just out of work or underemployed and haven't been able to keep up with the payment. There'll be some people who thought that they were smarter and decided they were just going to take a payment holiday, even though it didn't affect it. And then for some reason are not able to get it back on track because they still owe all that money, right? And the big difference between now and 2008 is that people have equity, a lot of equity. So we're not going to see the big, the home values that are going to drop that force people to sell, and to sell with negative equity. What we're going to see is people are going to decide to strategically sell because they're just going to want to get their cash out of their house, get in cash, take a deep breath, get rid of all that anxiety associated with foreclosure, and either rent, move, or out of the area, or buy something maybe that's a little more manageable for them, so that they're better prepared for the next storm that's bound to come. I mean, what's been 10 years, 12 years, and they say it comes this is a cycle, even though we say it can never happen again. Well, it's happened again for reasons that nobody could ever have predicted, but it's happened, differently. So the sky's not falling, but it is going to stimulate a lot of seller activity. And hopefully that will stimulate buyer activity, and the market will move into a more normal stage as opposed to this insanely strong sellers market that we've had since 2011. It's about time the buyers get a little leverage, and this might be the year that balances out a little bit.
And I'm just going through.
You're having all kinds of technical difficulties.
Well, I haven't, with
you
the
lost
new
your
house
video
and everything.
too, by the way.
I know. I'm going to bring it back up. I mean, with the new house and everything, I have not brought down all my new gear and set it up yet. And it's a pain in the rear end. Victoria writes at this moment, she was talking about, I'm sorry, Victoria. She was talking about the backlog of tenants and landlords and so forth. And that's what we're talking about here, right? People, do you see any way that they're going to get around this backlog of people who hasn't paid, David?
Well, a lot of people are going to get away with not paying. I mean, because really the only recourse that a seller is going to have outside of eviction is going to be court. small claims court in most cases. So they're going to really have to go down there. They're going to have to go in. They're going to have to file the court. They're going to have to they're going to have to get a judge to rule, and then they're going to have to collect. So they're going to win a judgment because they do owe the rent, and then whether or not they can enforce that or not is really unknown. So there's going to be a lot of sellers aren't even going to want to hassle with it, and a lot of sellers are on principle are going to go down there and win, and then they're not going to be able to collect. So there's going to be a lot of people get away with it for sure.
That is kind of the point, right? So who's going to be left holding the bag, as she put it? But that's why I wonder from a data standpoint, why wouldn't I be commercial
these
properties?
Landlords.
Right.
Yeah.
I think these properties are in a lot of trouble, and I think this is a great time to at least start building a list of individuals like that, and start to. In fact, we were going to talk about it with the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound plan that I had for this week. But if I was building a list over the course of a week, why wouldn't I start to focus on this exact data set right now going into the end of the year? Because no matter how we see it, things are going to change going into next year.
You know what? I think it's a really good idea. And as soon as we're done, I'm going to notify my marketing team to put some marketing together for landlords, because there's a pretty good probability that they have struggled with collecting rents and are frustrated from that and are ready to throw their hands up and just liquidate that property and move into another phase of their life, especially if they're an older homeowner and they bought real estate because it was supposed to be less risky, more stable, and to generate income. And now if all of a sudden that's not happening, they've lost their motivation to be in the rental property business. And so I think it's a really good idea to do a marketing campaign of some sort, whether or not it's postcards or letters or door knocking one day, which is my least favorite thing. I've never door knocked. Not once in my life have I knocked on a door to try to get business. But I think it's a really great list to be getting your property out. I don't know what the probability of selling is, but it's going to be a lot higher than the general homeowner market.
I agree. And I'll throw out some ideas for everybody that are listening. I know this for a fact. In each and every market, there is a renter-buyer sites throughout the internet based on local cities. So why wouldn't I create a drip page, which this is what David's team is more than likely going to do. Create a drip page with call to action, video testimonial or video action, and then gather the data, right? Find out the value of your property. The same messages work, David. What's the value of your current property? How many people are behind? Is it better to sell? You're at the top of the market. I mean, the basic call messages that we've used historically, and then plant them specifically into renter, buyer, landlord type groups or targeted. I mean, that's very targeted data, but it's obtainable targeted data. And at the very least, I can go on Realty Track and pull commercial properties.
Yeah, commercial's not my thing, but I think that there's going to be a lot of commercial, activity. The problem is that they're probably, they're going to have, commercial sellers are going to have to figure out, do they want to hang in there and try to rent, get these tenants current again, or to evict them and replace them with people who are going to be current, or sell at a loss to market, because their properties are worth a lot less this month than they were a year ago. Okay, just unless they're fortunate enough to have national tenants, but that continue to pay their rent. But one of the first things that I remember from the crisis is when it looked like commercial was going to get hit really hard, was the natural press release that the Cheesecake Factory did, that where they basically did a press release, said they're not going to pay rent at any of their stores, okay, because they wanted to conserve cash and they didn't know how long this was going to last. Now, whether or not they've caught up and resumed paying rent and all that stuff, I don't know. But I just remember that a company like the Cheesecake Factory was deciding in advance, not even really been impacted, just anticipating being impacted, was going to announce it. I can't imagine how many other smaller, less capitalized companies also decided not to pay rent. Now, I decided to pay rent, and I paid my rent all the way, all the way through, even though we probably could have gotten away with it. And, we had some lean cash flow months. I mean, our March, April, May, June, July numbers were a fraction of what they typically are, over previous years. But our September, October, November, December numbers are way bigger than what they've ever been. I mean, we went from having some of our worst months ever to having some of our best months ever. That's how quickly the market turned. And for us, I think it's in part because we didn't lay anybody off. We kept our foot on the gas. We aided as a company, to make sure that we kept our people employed. And in fact, we added personnel during that period of time. And now we're reaping the rewards of that. And I think that we'll bounce even higher and faster come the first of the year. I mean, things have settled down, but I think I would not want to be a commercial landlord right now. I'm
No,
glad I'm not.
I wouldn't either. I mean, by and large, you're looking at a very weird situation. I don't think it's hard to find renters that are willing to pay. I don't find the difficulty in that myself, but I think people are going to have somewhat tainted records. Jobs are scarce. I feel really bad for people that have to work a 9-to-5 life. Even when they do get to work them, it is around here. It's very questionable at best. But it is what it is. I mean, our business is to sell and buy property as a surrogate for a homeowner or a home buyer or home seller. So it's important, as we've talked about previously when we were talking trends, to recognize the trend. The trend is, you've got renters that are going to be out on the market. They should be, if they haven't destroyed their credit, which in most cases, from what I've been told, it's not affecting their credit. Now's a good time to move them into a purchase or move them out. If you're looking at commercial for multi-unit, that's a targetable data site. If you're looking at homeowners, we've read the story. Millions of people have fallen through the net of not requesting any forbearance agreements, and they're accruing this time off. So there's opportunity in the market to get a hold of properties to sell, and certainly there should be an abundance of people who want to buy. It would make sense to me to create a funnel, which I've done in the past. I haven't done it recently, but creating a funnel to take in people that are renters or buyers and get them pre-qualified and get them very serious about purchasing, because real estate, based on the way it is, David, at least here in San Diego and up there for you, I don't know about LA. They're still struggling a bit. I know their prices are up, but in general, LA is struggling because of the pandemic still, with mostly being shut down. Inventory is not going to get better. It's not like suddenly we're going to have more houses and that's going to decrease the prices. So the sooner the better is the call message for a buyer right now, I would think. I could be completely wrong, but from my logical standpoint, you better get on it, because it's not going to get better. It, in theory, might only get worse based on the pandemic.
I'm a real estate agent. And why we're doing some buyers, and my little team of buyers agent wrote 5-6 offers this week already, all of them in multiple offer situation. That is not where I would focus. I mean, it's easy to find buyers, especially buyers that work with multiple agents at a time, which turns out to be a waste of time if you're an agent. But where I think that the focus on is getting these listings. Yeah. And like everywhere, if you can, the agents that are really hitting it hard are the agents who are controlling the listings. And if you can figure out how to get in front of people who have a high probability of listing the house and build trusted relationships with them, you're going to do really, really well over the next year. And that's really where I would be put. If I were going to put marketing dollars into the universe like we do, I'm going to put those marketing dollars on sellers and not on buyers. The sellers attract buyers, listings attract buyers, and there's no better way to attract buyers than through listings, and that's where everybody should be focused. And I love the idea of the non-occupied homes. I
Yep,
really like it
I do
a
too.
lot, and I've never marketed to that segment. But this seems like if you were ever going to do that, this would be the year to do it. So we're gonna do it.
It all seems very rational to me, right? Going after into these forums, attacking these specific groups. Attacking is incorrect, but putting information into those groups to focus on them directly. It's all very, very logical. I mean, a concerted effort to postcards, mailers, something personal, a door drop. I don't really care what it is if you were going after non-owner occupied, but as much as you humanly can, and you certainly want to, you want to connect that as well with, following it up with online media, making sure you have a website, make sure you have drip, do all the parts and pieces. I mean, that's the part that ultimately kills me. Do all the parts and pieces. Don't do one thing looking for a result. That's the huge mistake in marketing. If you're going to do it, go all the way. Don't go in between. Do as much as you can so you get a better result, and take in all the data you can, take in all the clients you can, and start cycling your campaigns and start, we've said it a million times, David, 5 to 15 times is where your sale is, right? You gotta rinse, repeat, keep touching. And I realize that that's tiring for some, but this is a difficult market. I would guarantee we've lost real estate agents during this market. There's no doubt in my mind. From your perspective, is there anything that we missed for them to focus on?
No, but they can't focus on everything. So you really, unless you got a team of marketing people like I have, you got to really pick something and get after it. But certainly sellers over buyers, and then you've got to figure out what segment of those sellers you're going to do. Is it going to be for sale by owner? Is it going to be your sphere of influence, which probably isn't big enough? Is it going to be landlords who've got tenants, whether or not they're paying or not? And getting non-owner occupied owner list is not really that hard to do. It's probably a pretty easy list. It's just a matter of
Realty Track. Actually, you can actually use Realty Track.
Right. So
yeah.
and it's a simple fill. Even if you don't have Realty Track, if it's got a mailing address that's different than the physical address, it's probably non-owner occupied. And so it's not that big a list to compile. So I would definitely, that's where I'm going to focus. We're going to focus probably on digitally. Is I think that what we're going to do is really see if we can get Facebook and Google to help us target people who, at the minimum, have an interest in being the landlord, because the fair housing advertising criteria is making it really hard to hit specific groups. You've got to age and demographic information. So I don't know if that's one of the filters we're allowed to do or not, but ask me next week, I'll know.
There you go. And I will actually, which was going to be part of the smart thing that we were going to do, I'm going to start to put some of these fundamental pieces in place, and I will next week when we talk about creating smart objectives or OKRs, whatever term you want to use. David and I, as we go into the end of the year, have been trying to focus on all these things to kind of free you guys up and help you guys get more directed, because I think it is a dog eat dog world. There's less inventory to deal with. So it makes more sense to create these measurable objective goals for you guys, and to keep giving you the trends on all of this information. If you'd like to get a hold of David, go to david@everhome.io. Also, check out everhome.io. They are a proud sponsor of this show that you get to hear each and every week. You can also click and subscribe at whatever you're listening or watching this on. I know we have video, we have audio. There's a ton of it out there. We appreciate all of you watching us, listening to us, and coming back each and every week. Anything you'd like to add, David?
No, I think it's a good time to be in real estate. business. Don't be complacent. Don't wait for the market to come to you. Go out and find your market.